Right there at the altar, my fiancée was suddenly called away by a phone call from her male best friend. My mom was so furious, she fainted on the spot. When she returned 5 minutes later, the venue was empty. The wedding was over. Only her family was left waiting. "You forgot to turn off your mic when you took that call," they told her. Just as the officiant announced it was time to exchange rings, Sarah lifted the hem of her dress with one hand, ready to take a call. I grabbed her wrist. She looked up, our eyes met, and I could clearly see a flash of impatience. "Daniel, let me go," she hissed. "This is really important." Even though she tried to keep her voice down, the lapel mic pinned to her dress broadcast every word loud and clear. My silence made her snap. She violently yanked her hand away. "Who are you making that face for? I told you it's an emergency. It's just 10 or 20 minutes. Do you have to make a scene and have everyone stare at us? If I'd known you'd be like this, I never would have agreed to marry you so soon." We were halfway through the ceremony, and she was throwing a fit just to answer a phone call, turning our wedding into a circus. She hiked up her dress and ran out without a backward glance. Her parents, seeing things go south, quickly stepped in with forced smiles. "Oh, that girl," her mother said. "It must be an emergency from the hospital. Daniel, we're so sorry you have to deal with this." My hand clenched the wedding band so tightly that the metal dug painful ridges into my palm. Other people might not have seen her phone screen, but I did. It wasn't the hospital. It was him, her best friend. I thought about how I should have confronted her right then and there, asking why she was still so tangled up with him on our wedding day. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. I wanted to preserve what little dignity we had left. "Leo, why are you calling me now? Are you not feeling well again? Do you need me to come to the hospital?" Sarah's voice was soft and gentle, a complete 180 from the aggressive tone she'd used with me moments before. She hadn't turned off her mic. Her voice echoed through the entire venue, and everyone heard it crystal clear. A wave of murmurs and gasps went through the crowd. I just stood there on the stage, staring at the floor in humiliation. Even the most experienced officiant was speechless. I couldn't hear what he said to her, but Sarah's voice got even softer. Then I heard her say, "I know. You know I love you the most." Someone finally had the sense to rush over and kill the power to the sound system. But it was too late. Both our families, all our friends, everyone in that room had heard it. A gasp rippled through the guests, and then a shout. My mom was so stunned with anger that she collapsed. The whole place erupted into chaos. I scrambled to call 911, and my uncles helped me get my mom into the ambulance. Through it all, Sarah never returned. I stayed behind, apologizing to guest after guest as they filed out. Most of them just gave me a pitying look, patted my shoulder, and left. By the time the last guest was gone, Sarah's parents still couldn't find her. No one knew where she had hidden herself to take that call. They looked mortified, nervously twisting the fabric of the new clothes they'd bought for the occasion. The festive red of their outfits felt garish and painful to look at. "Daniel, there has to be a misunderstanding," her father started. "You've been with Sarah for years. You know who she is." I ripped the boutonniere from my lapel and threw it on the floor, my voice heavy with exhaustion. "I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, but I have to get to the hospital to be with my mom." "Excuse me." After all these years, it wasn't until we were standing at the altar that I realized I didn't know her at all. I didn't know she'd tell her male best friend she loved him the most. I didn't know his place in her heart was so much higher than mine. At my own wedding, I had become the punchline. I had just gotten to the hospital and was looking in on my mom through the window of her room when my phone rang. It was Sarah, and she was furious. "Daniel, what is wrong with you?" I answered one phone call. "Do you really have to overreact like this? First you give me that look at the wedding, and then you just send all the guests home? Are we getting married or not? Don't forget, you're the one who begged me to marry you. You picked the date, I went along with the engagement photos. So what's this new drama about? How are we supposed to have a life together when you have a temper like this? Are we going to fight constantly?" She offered no explanation for telling another man she loved him most at our wedding. She wouldn't even bother with a simple lie to placate me. She didn't ask why all the guests had suddenly left. She just launched into blaming me. In her mind, I was always the one at fault. She never was. "Cat got you tongue? Or are you just incapable of understanding English? I'm asking you, do you still want to get married or not?" I covered the mouthpiece, her shrill voice grating on my ears, and walked down the hospital corridor to a window before I spoke. "Didn't you ask your parents why all the guests left?" Her voice was sharp with impatience. "I was about to ask you, where are my parents? They're gone too." I nodded to myself. Of course. No wonder. I could hear Mr. and Mrs. Thompson's voices in the background, and Sarah grumbled in frustration. "This is so annoying. I can't get a straight answer out of you," she complained. "You don't know anything, and you've completely ruined what was supposed to be a happy day." Before I could explain anything, she slammed the phone down. It was probably for the best. Let her parents explain it to her. At least she wouldn't argue back with 3 insults for every word they said. My mom had just fainted from the shock and anger. After a day of observation and some fluids, the hospital discharged her. I was surprised to see Sarah show up at the hospital room door the next morning holding a bag of breakfast. "I brought some food for your mom." My mom just snorted. There was no wedding, no marriage license. "I'm not fortunate enough to be your mother-in-law." "Please don't say that," Sarah pleaded, her eyes welling up with tears. She turned to me, her look desperate. "Daniel, I didn't mean for what happened yesterday. I can explain. I didn't say anything, just took the breakfast from her and handed it to my mom. I knew we'd have to hash this out later, and I could skip a meal, but my mom needed to eat." I led Sarah out into the hallway. She grabbed my sleeve. "It was my best friend, Leo, who called me during the ceremony yesterday," she began. "He has severe mental health issues, and he doesn't have any other friends or family here in Riverside. I can't just abandon him. The last 2 times he tried to kill himself by slitting his wrists in the bathroom, I was the one who found him. If I hadn't gotten there in time, he'd be dead. I think the wedding made him feel insecure, and I was afraid he'd hurt himself, so I had to say whatever I could to calm him down. I only said those things to soothe him. Please, don't take it to heart. I can explain everything to our family and friends." "Explain what?" "That my fiancé can gently soothe another man's feelings but snaps at me during our own wedding. Let everyone know that I'm the fool in this relationship. It was just too humiliating." She clutched my sleeve, and the sincerity in her eyes seemed genuine. It was as if nothing had happened, as if we hadn't fought at the altar, as if our guests hadn't overheard that entire conversation, as if we were still the same loving couple. I didn't answer. A tear slid down her cheek and landed on the back of my hand, hot enough to make me flinch. I was just so angry yesterday. I said things I didn't mean. "Daniel, I was wrong. I won't get angry like that again. I promise it won't happen again. Please, just forgive me this one time. In a couple of days, we can go get the marriage license, and then we'll throw another beautiful wedding and explain everything. People will understand." She sounded so earnest, like she truly understood her mistake. But only I knew that our relationship now had a crack that could never be repaired. You can't just glue a shattered mirror back together. I had no idea how we could possibly build a life on top of these ruins. After I put my mom on the train back home, Sarah insisted on stopping at the grocery store. "I noticed you barely touched your food at lunch," she said. "I'll go home and make a couple of your favorite dishes." I was surprised she'd even noticed, and I didn't want her to go to any more trouble. But she was so enthusiastic that I didn't have the heart to say no. The atmosphere between us was almost peaceful as we sat down for dinner. "Open it," she said, sliding a small gift box across the table with a secretive smile. Inside was a pair of elegant cufflinks. "I thought these would look great with that suit you like so much. I was going to give them to you yesterday," she said. "Things got a little sidetracked, but better late than never, right?" I stared down at the cufflinks for a long moment before finally looking up. "They're beautiful. Thank you." It was a gift that symbolized commitment, a promise of a future together. I really love them. We've been together for 7 years, since college. Maybe yesterday really was just a fluke, I thought. Maybe she really did want to spend her life with me. The wedding rings have been a heavy weight in my pocket all day, and I thought this might be the right moment to finally bring them out. But before I could move, her phone rang. "Hello? Leo, are you okay? Don't do anything rash. I'm coming over right now." She hung up and looked at me, her face pale. "I'm sorry, Daniel. Something's wrong with him. I have to go." I could faintly hear the sound of glass shattering through the phone, followed by a man's muffled sobs. Sarah shot up from her chair and bolted for the door, but not before grabbing the insulated container of food she'd already packed. I stared at the cooling dishes on the table, and then I noticed it. Every single dish was full of scallions and cilantro, things I hate. I realized she hadn't cooked this meal for me at all. She had just used my kitchen to cook for Leo. I took the rings out of my pocket and tossed them into a drawer along with the cufflinks she had just given me. Every time I looked at them, I would just be reminded of our disastrous wedding and the frantic look on her face as she rushed to another man's side. It was too much to bear. Out of sight, out of mind. We were 2 people who had once clung to each other through the darkest times, but somewhere along the way, we had started to drift apart. I tried to pick all the scallions and cilantro out of the food, but after all that effort, the lingering taste was still there. I felt sick to my stomach, so I scraped everything into the trash. It wasn't meant for me anyway. I didn't feel a single pang of guilt. Later that night, Sarah's mother called me in a panic. "Daniel, is Sarah with you? I've been calling, and she's not picking up. Just let me know if she's there so I can stop worrying." "No, she's not with me." I heard her sharp intake of breath. "It's so late. If she's not with you, where could she be? That foolish girl. I gave her a piece of my mind yesterday. She's probably still angry and ignoring my calls on purpose." "Daniel, please, I'm begging you, give her a call. She always listens to you. She'll answer if it's you." "She always listens to me?" I tried to laugh, but no sound came out. "Don't worry, Mrs. Thompson. She's probably just at a friend's house. I'll give her a call." But what friends did she have in Riverside close enough to spend the night with? If you had to name one, it would be Leo. Sarah answered almost immediately, her voice laced with irritation. "Didn't I tell you I was taking care of Leo? Why do you keep calling me? I have dozens of missed calls. Don't you have anything better to do than check up on me all day? Don't you have a job? Or any hobbies? Can't you just scroll on your phone or something? Your mom asked me to." Sarah's voice shot up. "Daniel, did you go tattling to my mother? My mom is getting older, and you're bothering her with this nonsense? I can't believe you'd be so petty." I was too exhausted to even defend myself. The line went quiet for a moment, and then I heard Sarah gasp. "Leo, don't do that." The line went dead, leaving my mind to fill in the blanks. She had just promised me she wouldn't do this again. I guess she meant she wouldn't get angry with me. Not that she would stop running to Leo's side. As long as Leo needed anything, she would drop everything and run to him, no matter what. A single phone call from him was enough to throw her entire world into a panic. And me, as her fiancé, I could never compete with the place he held in her heart. Sarah and I met in college. She was so vibrant and positive, like a little sun that shone just for me. The year my dad died in an accident, my mom was overwhelmed with work and barely had time for me. I was in a terrible state, completely lost, and even thought about ending things a few times. She was the one who stayed by my side, comforting me, taking care of me. From college sweethearts to the wedding aisle, we had walked through so much darkness together. I thought we would get married, have kids, and live happily ever after. But then, when did Leo show up? The first time she introduced us, she just said he was a good friend from high school. She told me he was an orphan who'd had a rough life and asked me to help him out. Then, later, he became her best friend, and she couldn't bear to see anything bad happen to him. Their relationship kept shifting, but it always grew closer. I didn't know how much helping she expected from me. Was I supposed to hand over my fiancé, too? She called him her best friend, yet he wouldn't even come to our wedding. In fact, he deliberately chose our wedding day to call her with his emergency. He knew, with absolute certainty, that Sarah would never ignore him. I used to think she was my son, but now I saw her light had been shining on someone else all along. Maybe it was fate that our wedding fell apart. I had to start getting used to a life without her. Maybe it was the stress of everything that had happened, but I got sick that night. The apartment was warm, but I was curled up under the blankets, shivering uncontrollably. A deep chill felt like it was consuming me from the inside out. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead as I struggled to get out of bed and find the medicine cabinet. I managed to find some fever reducers and swallowed 2 of them dry, the hard pills scratching my throat on the way down. My head was spinning. I could almost hear Sarah's voice in my ear. "Not again. Why won't you go to the hospital when you're sick? You can't just live on over-the-counter pills. Even you can't keep pushing yourself like this. Get up. I'm taking you to the ER." I forced my eyes open. Only the dim, yellow light of the bedside lamp filled the room. Sarah wasn't here. Leo was sick, so she couldn't be bothered with me. The next morning, I took my temperature. It was 101.5. I gave in. I had to go to the hospital. I couldn't drive with a fever, so I stood outside waiting for a car, wrapped in a jacket, even though it was already 90 degrees out. I must have looked ridiculous. And to make matters worse, the rideshare driver I'd booked called to cancel. "Hey, just wait there," he said. "I've got to drop this fare off at Silver Lake, but I'll head back for you right after." Silver Lake was on the east side of town, and I was on the west. By the time he made that round trip, my fever would have probably broken on its own. If you couldn't take the ride, you should have said so before accepting it. "You expect me to just stand here and wait?" He just laughed. "Hey, it's your choice to wait, buddy. If you don't like it, cancel the trip. I'm not forcing you." A surge of anger rushed through me, and I couldn't hold it back anymore. Why would you even accept a ride if you couldn't do it? You can bet I'm filing a complaint." He hung up on me. Just then, a car pulled up in front of me. "I didn't ask you to come back for me." I snapped. The window rolled down, and my boss, Ms. Davis, was sitting there with a small smile. "I was just passing by and saw you standing here. Figured I'd check in." I was mortified. I never expected to run into my boss like this. "Get in," she said. "I'll give you a ride to the hospital." "Daniel, you've been out for over 2 weeks. I know getting married is a big deal, but you can't just abandon your job. If I hadn't gotten back from my business trip early, were you planning on just staying out? It's a miracle corporate hasn't come down on you. Married or not, you still have to work, right?" I had invited a lot of people from the office to the wedding, but Ms. Davis had been out of town. It was clear the story of what happened had made the rounds at work. I pulled my jacket tighter around me and looked down. "I'll be back the day after tomorrow." She grinned. "Sound good. Get some rest and come back ready to fight." She dropped me off at the hospital entrance. As I was getting out, she said, seemingly out of nowhere, "The company's opening a new branch in Charleston. I was thinking, since that's your hometown, maybe you'd be interested in heading up the team there. It might be a better fit for you than staying here. Of course, if you're not interested, no problem. I can find someone else." I knew she was trying to do me a favor. Too many people at the office knew what had happened at the wedding. Staying in Riverside meant facing my coworkers' pity every day, and honestly, my career prospects here were probably shot. The only reason I'd stayed in Riverside after graduation was for Sarah. But my roots were in Charleston. My family was in Charleston. I nodded. "Thank you, Ms. Davis. I'll definitely think about it." I never expected to run into Sarah and Leo there. He looked sick, his face deathly pale. Then again, holding my own four-bag with one hand, I probably didn't look much better. They looked like they were heading to the restroom, with Sarah holding his four-bag high as she walked beside him. In the past, seeing that would have sent me into a rage. I would have stormed over and demanded an explanation. But now I felt nothing. My arm was just starting to go numb from the effort. It was tiring even for me, let alone for Sarah. Yet there she was, holding it for him without a second thought. It was a level of devotion she had never shown me. It was laughable, really. My fiancée was in the hospital, diligently taking care of her best friend, completely unaware that her own fiancé was sick in the very same building. I stood in the hallway outside the restrooms, my eyes fixed on them as they approached. "Daniel, will you ever stop? Did you follow us all the way to the hospital?" She had dark circles under her eyes. Clearly she hadn't slept. I let out a bitter laugh. Not all of us have the free time to follow Leo around all day. Can't you tell? I'm sick. If she had bothered to check her iMessages today, she would have seen the text I sent her this morning. But she hadn't even opened it. She froze for a second, looking like she wanted to come over to me, but her hand was still clutching his four-bag. Just then, a nurse came over with a rolling four-pole and helped me hang my bag on it. I glanced at the four-needle in Leo's right arm and almost laughed. It made me feel like a fool for insisting the nurse put mine in my left arm. The only reason I'd done that was so I'd have my right hand free to manage the pole myself, since I had no one to help me. The nurse gave me a pitying look. "It's going to be tricky for you to use the restroom like that. If you're not in a rush, I can find a male orderly to help you with the pole." I shook my head and declined her kind offer. "My fiancée is right over there." She glanced over at Sarah and Leo, and the pity in her eyes deepened. Sarah's face flushed crimson. She quickly handed Leo's four-bag to the nurse to hold for a moment. She took the four-pole from my hand and leaned in, her voice a low, vicious whisper only I could hear. "You actually had the nerve to ask that nurse for help? Or did you just come to the hospital to hit on her?" I couldn't believe she would jump to such a wild conclusion about me and the nurse. A nurse helps me with my four, and suddenly we're having an affair? Then what did that say about her and Leo? She always had one set of rules for herself and another, much stricter set for everyone else, especially for me. To the outside world, she played the part of the perfect, understanding girlfriend. If it weren't for that disaster at the wedding, no one would have ever seen the real her. I was just so tired. "Go back to him," I said. "I can handle this myself." She stomped her foot, her face a mixture of anger and embarrassment. "Do you think I actually want to be here taking care of you? It's just a cold, and you're acting like you need to be hospitalized. You knew Leo and I would be here, didn't you? Are you happy now that you've seen us together? All you do is call me constantly or stalk me. Who else but me would ever put up with you?" The malicious accusations, the blatant insults. I'd heard it all 1,000 times over the phone, but hearing her say it to my face, right there, still felt like a punch to the gut. She stormed off, grabbing Leo and pulling him away. I watched them go, my eyes burning, fighting back tears. There was a time when she would have been by my side, just like that. Why had she changed? I declined the nurse's offer of help and wheeled the four-pole back to the infusion room alone. I dozed off and woke up some time later to find the four-bag empty and the needle already removed by a nurse. I felt a lot better. It was already getting dark outside. Instead of calling a car, I just started walking home, following the directions on my phone. Standing on the streets of this city that still felt unfamiliar, I was suddenly overwhelmed with a sense of being lost. The only reason I was here was to build a home with Sarah in Riverside. But now, it seemed there was no reason for me to stay anymore. The endless fighting and humiliation had ground all our good memories into dust. I was so tired. Without a reason to be here, even breathing the air felt exhausting. I think it was time for me to say goodbye to this city. Just then, her custom ringtone played from my phone. I was surprised she'd even thought to call. "You didn't drive to the hospital, did you? Where are you? I'll come pick you up." What was this? An olive branch after stabbing me in the back? "Hello, are you there?" "No, it's fine. I'm already home." I chose my words carefully. "You should go be with Leo. Make sure he doesn't do anything stupid." She sighed heavily, her voice tight with annoyance. "Can't you just be nice for once? The poor guy is all alone here. He has nobody." "Fine, whatever. Don't bother explaining. It just annoys me. You didn't even tell me you went home. I wasted a trip back to the hospital looking for you, and gas isn't free, you know?" She said Leo was all alone here. And what was I? I had left my entire life behind to be with her, and she had humiliated me at our wedding and made my mother a source of gossip for our entire family. A hot flash of anger went through me, and for the first time ever, I hung up on her. It wasn't like she had anything I wanted to hear anyway. She called back several more times. Ironic, considering how she used to yell at me for calling her too much. She never bothered to check her call log. She'd see dozens of missed calls and just assume they were all from me. She just happened to pick up my one call and unloaded all her frustration on me, even though I hadn't done anything. Why'd I have to put up with this? This time, she didn't speak right away. After a long pause, her tone finally softened. "Daniel, are you upset that I want to take care of Leo?" I gave a short, empty laugh. "I'm not upset. You can do whatever you want. It's not my place to tell you what to do. Besides, you two are best friends. He has serious issues, so of course you should take care of him. He probably needs you more than I do anyway." She let out a long sigh, her voice firm again. "You are angry. If you're upset, you can just tell me, but you shouldn't be following me." What happened today really set Leo off. Now he thinks he's a burden. You know how people with his condition can get. They overthink everything. I nodded. A grown man who refuses to get proper help for his issues and instead clings to my fiancé all day. Yes, he was definitely a burden. "I know," I said. "That's why I told you to take good care of him. I didn't mean to run into you at the hospital today. Next time, just give me a heads up on where you'll be, and I'll make sure to stay far away." Sarah's patience was clearly wearing thin. She took a few deep breaths, trying to calm herself down. "You need to think about your attitude." "My attitude is perfectly clear," I replied. "I'm not angry. I support you taking care of your best friend. If I had a friend like that, I'd take care of them too. But I didn't, and I would never play these kinds of games." I didn't quite catch her last words before she hung up, but I'm sure they weren't pleasant. I must have really pissed her off because she didn't answer my calls or texts for 3 days. I was busy with work anyway. I didn't have time to wonder who she was with or what she was doing. Without her daily barrage of insults, my life was actually much more peaceful. My life was filled with work, and I was getting by just fine without her. It was then that I finally understood how ridiculous it is to think you can't live without someone. Your body is your own. Your life is your own. But my silence must have made Sarah nervous. She finally reached out, ready to make peace. But I didn't need it anymore. She asked me to meet her, and after some hesitation, I agreed. There were still things that needed to be said. For instance, that I was done. I had decided to let her go, and to let myself go. The day we met, I wore a nice suit and the cufflinks she had given me. I figured it would be the first and last time I ever wore them. When I arrived at the restaurant, I saw Leo was there too. Leo was just going to be home alone ordering takeout, Sarah explained, so I figured he might as well join us. "If you mind, I can have him sit at a different table." Leo tugged on her sleeve. If I said I minded, I knew she'd hold it against me forever. So I just shrugged. "It's fine. Whatever." I sat across from them, watching as they leaned in to show each other things on their phones. They sat side by side, making me the odd one out. The genuine smile on Sarah's face was a painful sight. I couldn't remember the last time she had smiled like that at me. It wasn't that she'd forgotten how to smile. She just saved her smiles for other people. All I ever got was impatience and blame. "Hey, Daniel," Leo said suddenly. "Those cufflinks look really familiar." I had no idea why his eyes had suddenly darted from his phone to my wrist, or why he'd chosen that exact moment to bring up the cufflinks. Before I could respond, he slapped his thigh as if a light bulb had gone off in his head. He pointed to my wrist. For my birthday last year, Sarah bought me a new suit from this place. They were having a promotion: spend over $500 and get a free pair of cufflinks. I remember now. It was this exact pair. I was going to wear them, but I could never find them afterwards. So Sarah must have given them to you. "Leo, stop," Sarah said, her face paling as she tried to shut him up. So my wedding gift from her was just a freebie she got when buying a gift for him. And here I was, wearing them to this meeting, only to have it thrown back in my face. I had walked right into my own humiliation. The cufflinks felt like a slap across the face, hot and stinging. A wave of pure humiliation washed over me, and a white-hot anger burned away every last shred of my composure. I ripped the cufflinks off and threw them into a nearby trash can. I had no use for someone else's hand-me-down gift. "I've lost my appetite," I said, standing up. "I'm leaving." Every second I spent there felt toxic. Sarah ran after me and grabbed my wrist. For a second, I thought she was going to apologize for her blatant favoritism. But instead, she started blaming me. "What do you think you're doing just walking out like this? What is Leo supposed to think now? He's going to think this is his fault, and he'll feel guilty forever. You need to go back in there right now and explain to him why you're leaving." I laughed in her face. "I'm leaving because I'm pissed off. Is that a good enough reason for you? Sarah, you gave me a free gift you got from buying him a present as my wedding gift. Aren't you the one who's in the wrong here? In fact, I should probably thank him. If it weren't for him, I'd still be in the dark." She was completely unrepentant. "I looked them up online. Those cufflinks are worth over $100. It's not like I gave you some cheap junk. What are you so angry about? I got a gift for him, and I got one for you. Do you really need to be so petty?" I laughed coldly and pulled my arm away. I never cared about the gift itself. I care about the thought behind it. I would have happily worn something cheap from a street vendor if she had picked it out just for me. But she just kept deceiving me, treating me like a fool. I had seen the smug, triumphant look in Leo's eyes. I saw it all perfectly clearly. The dinner had ended with everyone miserable. Sarah started giving me the silent treatment. She genuinely seemed to believe that by chasing me out of the restaurant, she had already extended an olive branch. She was always so convinced she was in the right. Why should I have to be the one to take the high road she offered? No one was obligated to coddle her forever. I used to indulge her because I loved her, but her behavior had drained every last drop of that love from me. I knew with absolute clarity that we were over. Ms. Davis kept pushing me to take the transfer to Charleston. She'd heard all the gossip going around the office. She was genuinely trying to help me. Maybe a new city and new people would be a chance for a fresh start. On the day I left for Charleston, I packed up everything Sarah had ever left at my apartment and had it delivered to her. I had no plans to ever return to Riverside, and I was putting my apartment on the market. I texted Sarah to let her know her things were coming, but she didn't respond. I knew the routine all too well. Every time we fought, she put my number on Do Not Disturb. It didn't matter whose fault it was. I was always the one to apologize first. I was tired of always being the one to reach out. This time I wouldn't. I tried calling, but she didn't pick up. My movers were waiting, so I had no choice but to call her parents and ask them to meet me downstairs. "Daniel, what is all this?" her mother asked when she saw the boxes. "Why did you send all this over?" "I'm leaving Riverside. The apartment is already with a realtor. Sarah isn't answering my calls, so I had to bother you." "I'm sorry. Leaving? You're leaving? What about Sarah? Is she going with you?" My gaze drifted to two figures locked in a passionate kiss under a tree nearby. Even from a distance, I recognized the back of Sarah's head instantly. I said, "she's already found someone new to marry." Her mother followed my gaze and saw them. She cried out in disbelief, "Sarah, what are you doing?" Sarah turned and ran over to us. "What are you doing here?" she asked me, glancing at the boxes. "Are you going on a trip?" I let out a hollow laugh. "Sarah, I saw you under that tree. I saw you kissing him. We're done." The words I should have said so long ago finally came out. A huge weight I didn't even know I was carrying lifted from my chest. There's no point in fighting like this anymore. You can keep the engagement ring. I'm selling the apartment. I pulled the wedding bands from my pocket, the ones we never got to exchange. These were made from that sketch you drew back in college. I promised I'd have them made for you when you got married. I've never worn mine. If you want, you can use them for your next wedding. I've kept all my promises to you. Sarah, I wish you all the best." She just stood there, stunned, for a few seconds before she started screaming. "I'm not breaking up with you. Who said we're breaking up? Who told you you could leave? You get back here." I saw her frantic face in my rearview mirror as I drove away. Leo was holding her back, keeping her from running after the car. A clean break was the best ending we could have hoped for. I didn't hear anything about her until a few years later, through a college friend. They told me she and Leo had a shotgun wedding, and that she developed severe postpartum depression after the baby was born. It seemed fitting. When he was at his lowest, she was there for him. Now that she was suffering, he was there for her. In a way, I guess they saved each other. My friend then changed the subject, asking with a laugh why I still hadn't found a girlfriend after all these years. I guess it's because I gave my whole heart to someone when I was young. And even though it didn't work out, I've never been able to love anyone else since. Is that my own mental block? Maybe, but life is your own, and you have to keep living it.